Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. In each episode, we invite guests to have honest conversations about their mental health journeys with the goal of destigmatizing mental health within the Asian American Pacific Islander community. Due to the nature of the podcast, we'll be discussing a variety of mental health topics and possibly triggering experiences. While we and the majority of our guests are not trained professionals, we encourage you to practice self-care while listening and seek professional guidance if you or a loved one is in need of support. With that said, let's start the episode.
Hello, my name is Matthew Shima, and I describe my mental health journey as ongoing and a process.
Hello, welcome to the Changing Tides podcast. I am your host, Matthew Yonemura. Welcome back to another episode. I am so happy to be here and to record this intro and to share this interview today. I hope everything's going well with our listeners. I appreciate everyone who has been with us along this journey so far. This episode marks the end of the many pre-recorded, backlogged interviews that we conducted. And our next episode after this one will be a new episode that we're recording soon. As soon as in the week of June 23rd. I know June 23rd is a Wednesday today, but I'm just letting you know that we will be up to date with current interviews, and I'm so excited to share those with you as well. I haven't even recorded them yet, but I'm so excited for the guests that we'll have. I want to be candid. My mental health has been going through its ups and downs these last few days, this last week, and I'm just sharing that because it's normal. We go through our ups and downs and we try to pick ourselves back up. We talk to our mental health professionals, we talk to our friends, our family, our loved ones. We go for walks, we exercise, we eat good food, we take a day to relax. Whatever it is that we do to get ourselves out of these holes, it's all normal. It's also normal to be kind of stuck in a hole for a moment. So I just wanted to share that because I wouldn't be doing this podcast or myself any justice by pretending like I have perfect days every single day, but we're here today, and we're going to keep it pushing. Today I'm doing pretty well. And I'm also excited because I'll be sharing this interview with a mental health professional for the first time on this podcast. As mentioned many times, Changing Tides is backed by a mental health advisory board with mental health professionals on the team. So with that in mind, this guest is actually one of those members of the Changing Tides Mental Health Advisory Board. He is also a licensed therapist, and he's the most, as far as I know, when I talk to him, he's one of the most common human beings I've ever met, one of the most kind people, just an overall great person that I've had an honor of knowing outside of the podcast I've had conversations with. And with all that said, I'm so excited to share the interview that I had with Matthew Shima. So, Matthew Shima, welcome to the podcast, a longtime friend of Changing Tides, a mental health advisory board. We'll go through your whole accolades and all the whole thing in my separate little piece.
Okay.
But thank you so much. I love that you said a process. We've had people say it's been a roller coaster, ups and downs. We've heard a lot of the same stuff about process. So if you don't mind describing a little bit what your process has been and to get you to where you are now.
I think even I didn't really realize it was a mental health journey until I don't know when, kind of recently. That I never really had thought of it that way, but so I guess in that way it already is a process. Like there's something that's been with me internally, probably since I was a child, since I was a kid, and it's always been there, and then start to become more and more aware of it and more aware of what I'm seeking, what I'm longing for, what my questions are about life, about myself, about relationships, about the world, about how things work, how relationships work, how my internal process works, how it responds to environment, responds to other people, different life. So life is always like, I guess that I just did this. It's like that roller coaster. But more like waves, I think, for
Mm-hmm.
me than a roller coaster. Like there, or I like this idea of it as like seasons, right? And
Hmm.
like the natural world has seasons, and I think our life has seasons. Um, but I guess so a process in that seeking out different avenues of, you know, essentially towards like happiness or meaning or fulfillment, um, contentment, and sometimes I feel like I'm on the right track, and then it feels like I'm no longer on that right track anymore, and I have to adjust it, and then something else changes in my life, and then I have to figure out this new way. So I don't ever think there's like one, like I figured out my mental health and now I'm good.
Right.
Like I'm healed. I got it figured out. I don't really think of it that way.
100%. And I think that's along the lines of what so many people have talked with or have said, whether they've been a podcast guest or just in conversations surrounding mental health. It's
Mm.
about this process. I really enjoy what you said about waves and the seasons because not only do, well, waves for one, because changing tides, it's a cool little plug.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh
then but then when it comes to seasons, like seasons also have a major effect on mental health. So I think it's
Mhm,
interesting to kind of see how you treat mental health as seasons, but also how seasons affect it. But
mhm.
so just a little note on that.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious when your mental health journey first began, and was there anything about your own experiences that inspired you to become a licensed therapist?
Yeah. Um, so again, I think it's also, to use I guess it's the word process again, that it's more like in hindsight, I can see the connections. Um, but kind of finding for me where I could make the most impact. Um, so I guess becoming a therapist is in response to essentially like finding my place to give my life meaning and
Hmm.
fulfillment and contentment, and acting and engaging with my values of like compassion or awareness or connection, um, contributing, things like that. So I think so a lifetime of feeling a lot of the opposite, right? Being on the receiving end of what's the opposite of compassion? Discompassion, um, you know, struggling with a lot of things. So, um, like, kind of wandering, feeling kind of like meaninglessness or despair almost of like, what's the point of all this? And I
Hmm.
think, and what's the point of living here in life? Like, why am I here? What's this about? Just so we can get a job and die eventually, or sometimes be happy, sometimes be sad, and what's this all about? So I think for me, like pursuing those questions, I kind of and then kind of came upon this field by accident.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
So I enjoyed hearing that you're in this because you want to help people, kind of help you to find your purpose. But one thing I've been curious about when it comes to therapists and through your practice, you're helping people through their own mental health struggles.
Mhm.
They might see you as the one to like have their answers, but have you also found that through your practice you're learning from your clients as much as they might be learning from you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really smart question, um, because I think if I think I'm not doing therapy right if
Hmm.
I'm not learning from my clients and my patients. Um, that we I can say my approach anyway is I try to engage with my clients in a way where I'm fully there and open and available. That's my approach. At least that's my intention anyway. Um, and that not like I have studied, I have had a lot of training, I have
Right.
had lots of hours, like I do know some things, but I never want that to like making sure like I get to say what I know and
Mm.
I can teach. That's never my priority. Like, it's more important to see people with dignity and respect and be with them and get as close as I can to understanding what it is to live their life and what it's like to be them.
Mm.
And so I could never know that more than they do, you know? So, and when, as I'm listening, as I'm trying to understand, I'm also understanding myself. And as I try to listen empathically, that, oh, I also can recognize that experience, or, oh, I never saw it that way. So as we engage in dialogue, that um, I can come more understanding, oh, this is how um, this feeling works. This is how sorrow functions, or this is how um, this is what it's like to be feel disconnected from someone or to feel ostracized or
Mm.
um, oh, this is how shame works in a relationship. So as I'm always learning and hearing my clients perspectives on things, and then I take that in and I'm affected by it. And so we're constantly kind of mutually affecting each other. And that's actually, so my approach is through that mutual, through the connection and mutual understanding and mutual affecting, that I think is one way that change happens, rather than like, I know what to do, here's your
Right.
problem, do this, and you should change this way. If you
Uh-huh.
just did this, like, because that already, that's coming from a place of like, oh, that doesn't feel very nice to
Mm.
hear. Like I'm doing it wrong, and I should just listen to this therapist.
For sure. Because
Yeah.
I feel like that's maybe a misconception about therapy, is that you're going to be, you're going to be laid out on the leather couch. They're going to be kind of talking at you. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to, you'll tell them your story. So it's really interesting to hear about this mutual, you know, it's a conversation essentially,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's feeding off of one another.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so not to make too far of a jump, but 2020, let's just address it. It's been a year of transition and change, and there's been a huge rise in the need for mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
But for you specifically, it's marked the first time you've gone fully remote with teletherapy.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how it's been to make this transition and how it's impacted your approach, if it has at all.
Yeah. So on the technical logistical end, it was actually very seamless. I
Hmm.
had already had everything set up because I had done a little bit before here and there of like kind of, if someone was couldn't come in that day or their car broke down or uh, there was something that came up that we needed to do a remote session, we would. Um, so I was already set up on the logistical side, on the technical end. So that made it very easy for me. So I was lucky that way. And just actually, just before Corona hit, I had transitioned all of my I guess sort of the back end of my practice. I had transitioned it digitally already,
Hmm.
so it was actually like a really seamless transition for me. Um, and it did take some getting used to though for to do the client work. Um, and I'll just say one, it works really well actually. And I think
Oh.
the more that we all got used to it, the more it started to feel closer to like in-person sessions.
Hmm.
I'll say um, one difference is you can't see most of the people, right? Like you can only
Yeah.
see certain parts. So either when I'm describing something, because I'll use my own experience too in the session. So I'll mention something about my body or ask about their body, like, oh, what are your hands doing right now? I can't
Hmm.
really see them. Um, because that's also usually we're taking in so much nonverbal information, but we don't have that in a little window.
Right.
So on one hand, it's a downside. Like I can't feel what's going on as easily.
Mm-hmm.
But then the plus to that is I have to ask. And then when I have to ask, I can't assume and I can't just non-verbally see, but I have to ask. I have to put my curiosity into words. And then the person on the other end is invited then to describe something and also to sense and then put it into words back. So it's actually useful in terms of therapy, being able to put your thoughts, feelings, body sensations into words as opposed to just um, they come and go. So that's actually, it ends up being a useful tool in a way to like, you kind of get the excuse like, I can't see, so that's why I'm asking. And
Uh-huh.
then as opposed to maybe a question that might feel too invasive, like what's going on with your feet or something. Like that might feel, if like obviously I can see it, but
Mm-hmm.
when you can't see it, you have to ask. And so that's actually been a surprising outcome. Um, Another positive thing is you get to see into people's lives in a more direct way. Like you get
Mm.
to see their space. What is their home like? What is their, you get to, I get to meet lots of people I wouldn't get to, like children come in or pets and
Right.
cats walk by and um, partners and family members and you get to hear the sounds at their place or um, you get to see what people have on their walls and they'll show you and like so it's kind of like a bit of show and tell
Uh-huh.
which is really cool because normally if they come into my office it's just whatever I have already set up um, so that's been fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I like that because when you have to like verbally ask someone like, what are you doing with your hands or whatever it might be, like for me in my own experiences, I'll realize after like 10 minutes of being clenched up that I need to let my shoulders down a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it also makes your clients maybe more aware of their own bodies. Um,
Yeah.
so I really like that. And I also think that once this is over and we're able to go out again, it'll be kind of nice to be able to continue to do this remotely because people will be able to just stay at home and be able
Mm-hmm.
to get the same service. So I
Mm-hmm.
think in the long run, this is going to be helpful still with it all being online.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's been really useful. Like another positive is that it's made it way more accessible to people in a further distance, but also like you don't have to maybe get childcare.
mm,
You don't have to leave your, because normally if you have to drive into office, you leave your kid at home and you need
right.
childcare and like and there's driving and traffic and parking and that takes a 1 hour appointment all of a sudden becomes 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can squeeze it in right in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You can take a lunch break and do it, or just pop over for some other work, do your session, and be done. Now, the downside to that is you you lose that sort of um, like when you like park and walk and sit down, get your tea, get
Uh-huh.
settled, the small talk, the little bits of yeah. So you get to hear.
Yeah. You see that?
I didn't know you had a dog, and now I know. Um, that you get those little bits of things. And so one thing I'm cautious always around transitions into a call and then transitions back out, because normally when you end a session, okay, get up, maybe throw your cup away, like grab your things, okay, say bye, walk them to the door, like something like that.
Hmm.
But um, now it's like, okay, bye, click, gone.
Yeah.
And they're just like we're both just alone in our space and so the disconnect is boom, it's
Hmm.
instant. So that sort of soft transition in or out is missing, and so I'm always aware of that.
Hmm. And not only that, but there's also that awkward like half a second when you're reaching for the end meeting and you're both just kind of reaching for it and you're seeing who's gonna like there's just that little half second.
Uh-huh.
um, but I'm curious for you because with being online, you're having back-to-back maybes of all these Zoom calls,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I'm a student. I have the most I have is 2 classes a day, but I'm curious how you battle your Zoom fatigue, um, that me and so many others are feeling at this point.
Yeah. Um, One thing is I like the basics of getting a good setup. Like I got a riser for my laptop, like a
Mm,
desk, a chair, I got a pillow here, like so just kind of the basics of comfort as best you can. Um, and then I have it set up the same way every time, so there's not a lot of thinking. Like I always have my water. I usually have like coffee or tea, like so kind of just like I have my work mode,
mm-hmm.
so that helps. Um, and then outside of work, basically, essentially just try to get outside as much as possible. Um, I know that's hard right now for depending on where you live and if you have access to that, but I mean, essentially just non-screen time.
Yeah.
And the tricky part, I think, a lot of this is where, like, it's nice to see our friends, right, and to do like a Zoom thing, but to be honest, I don't do many anymore because I can't.
Right.
Um, it's too much. So I have to say no to a lot of things. Like webinars, there's so many webinars I don't go to. Like it's sad. I feel like there's a part of me that feels like I should support, but also like I had to cut way back on all the things that I would normally feel energized to do. I have to just not say no to it. Um, and when I can like call my friends, I love AirPods. It's the best invention ever, because I can put them in and I can call someone, not FaceTime
Mm-hmm.
or Zoom, but just the audio call. Put my phone in my pocket or my bag, whatever, and then take a walk.
Right.
And so I can like walk and still connect, but not let my eyes rest. Have a different scenery, move my body. Yeah.
And I really like that you said, even when it comes to Zoom, that you need to stop and say like no every now and then. Because when we're all able to again and you're able to go out and see your friends, that's a continued practice of like if you can't hang out with your friends, like I don't think anyone's going to be offended if you have to say no again. So because I'm sure everyone's
Mm-hmm.
going to want to do their get-togethers when we're able to, but
Mm-hmm.
saying no, it's an option for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It sure is.
We're taking a quick break to introduce Anchor, the sponsor of this podcast. Anchor is free, first and foremost, which is amazing. Who doesn't love free? And you can record everything directly into Anchor. It's so easy to use Anchor. That's how you are listening to this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple, the Anchor website. You're listening to it because I uploaded this podcast episode to Anchor. If you want to start your own podcast, I highly recommend Anchor. It's made this whole process so easy. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You know, you're trusted to help your clients through day-to-day lives, through their trauma, depression, anxiety. There's so many different aspects that you're helping your clients through whenever you're talking with them. So how do you help them, but like more important, or maybe not more importantly, but how do you make sure that your own mental health is balanced?
Mm. Um, so I always have I have like a morning routine, which really helps me. So having systems in place for things makes my life a lot easier. Um, but my morning routine is like a really big support for me. So wake up and then drink a glass of water. I make my coffee. I meditate, journal, read, yoga, like then and clean, and then start. Like if I can do that,
Mm,
um, that's really like a solid morning and not rushed. If I wake up with enough time to not rush and do all those things, that sets me up for a really good day. Um, um, so that's one thing, is having like a solid morning routine full of things that I know are good for me. Like not start out checking email, not start out um, text messages and YouTube or whatever. Um, because I notice when I do that, that automatically my mind is already, I'm losing my focus, I'm losing concentration. Now I feel foggy.
mm-hmm.
So having, I guess, awareness of my state and what I need to do at each moment. Um, and then I think I guess I'm repeating myself now, but saying it's more about like what I don't do that's really
Mm,
helps me. Like I could go on a rant all day about like technology, but um, turn off the notifications. Like if I had to give advice, that would be my self-care advice. Like turn off notifications of everything. Just turn them
Mm-hmm.
off. Like so
Uh-huh.
that's what I do. I turn off like I just got a new phone on Sunday. Um, but first thing, okay, delete, 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 delete. Off, 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 off. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need like I go through the
Uh-huh.
settings and go through every category and no, no, don't. No, off. Notifications off. This off. Don't automatically do that. Automatic this off. Um, so I can see I'm passionate about that.
But I think that's great advice because especially for anyone who's super involved with social media,
Hmm.
man, like keeping track of how often you're getting those likes or something, like it could be draining.
Yeah, yeah. And like me and my friend fight about their hardcore Google Calendar advocate. I'm a paper calendar.
Uh,
Like I'm like, yeah, me controlling my schedule without, I don't know. I could go on forever about that. But really like minimizing, simplifying, going back to what's this, like the amount of things I don't spend my energy on is what helps me stay recharged.
mm,
Yeah.
for sure. Um, I'm curious if there's any other daily self care practices that you enjoy besides the ones that you mentioned, or maybe one of the ones that specifically that you've been really passionate about lately, that you'd
Mm.
like to share.
Um, Meditation for
Mm.
sure. That's like my go-to. It's been my longest standing one, and it's just to me it's like the most essential. Um, and which by meditation it doesn't even have to be anything serious, but sitting quietly, just sitting quietly, enjoying whatever is there. If you're outside, you can even look at the trees or uh, just sit with your eyes closed and just kind of resting in silence. Um, Sometimes I'll even have my coffee and just, I call it my coffee meditation, or just sitting drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So not in any rigid, serious way, but just time to shut down and quiet,
Hmm.
be quiet. So
I,
that's
I'm
definitely my go-to.
For sure, and I'm curious because I've tried it. I can't like I feel like I do it wrong, even though there
Mm.
probably isn't necessarily a wrong way to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
I start thinking about all the stuff I have to do for the day. So,
Mm-hmm.
is there a direction that you try to put your focus so that you're not doing something like that?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of misinstruction about meditation, and that people think that it means you're supposed to have a quiet your mind,
Hmm.
or your mind is supposed to somehow be without thoughts.
Hmm.
But that's actually not what no mind means. If you've ever, some people talk about, oh, I need to be no mind, or I need to be quiet my thinking. But thinking is always just going to happen.
Right.
You can't stop thinking from
No.
happening.
Right.
Um, so, um, and that's why there's techniques like, for example, there's so many different kinds of meditations, I'll say that, which all have different intentions and different purposes, like what they're trying to do but with that meditation technique. But like a simple mindfulness, right, is pretty common now. Just noticing your breath,
Hmm.
right? And why is that useful? Because your breath is that thing, it's another object to rest your attention on when you notice it going to a thought. So, like if a thought comes up and what I have to do that, oh, as soon as you notice that you're thinking about your to do list, that moment you've already become mindful of your
Hmm.
thinking, and you can return it to your breath. And then maybe one half a breath later, you've already thought about, now you're thinking about lunch again. Like, oh, whoop, there it goes. Wow, my mind really goes where it wants to. Okay, let it do its thing. I'm going to keep returning to my breath.
Hmm.
Like, so that would be kind of maybe a basic instruction, like, oh, gently return your attention back. Rest it with the breath. Notice it comes in and out.
I think I'm gonna try it again tomorrow. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
try to remember to come back to the breath because
What about trying
it's
right
it's
now?
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing. When you said it, I was all of a sudden was like, how am I breathing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is it's the unconscious thing because we have to do it to survive. Like you can't live without
Mm-hmm.
breathing. But
Mm-hmm.
once you focus on it, you're all of a sudden, that's all that you can think about. So
Yeah.
I'll be trying that because I'm already
Yeah.
thinking about it this whole time
Yeah.
now.
Could I invite you to notice your breath right now and just notice how it's coming in and out?
And like though like I've realized that when I do these interviews, just because I want to listen. I don't know what it is, but like I don't let myself do a good
So notice
yeah.
that you can do it now.
Yeah. So thank you for that. See,
Uh,
every to all the listeners, this is why Matthew Shima is the top in the business of teletherapy. So it's like
Those are his words, not mine.
and Matthew, we're not even putting this episode out. This is just a free therapy session for me.
This was just a
This is just
trick.
all for me, all for me.
But
But on a serious note, oh no, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was gonna say, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of how therapy goes. This is how in the way I work. Like,
Mm.
oh, we're talking. Oh, this something. Okay, this is something we can do. Oh, let's try it. Oh,
Uh-huh.
what happens? Oh, let's check it out. Okay, like, oh, let's notice that exhale. Ah,
Yeah,
there's relief that comes with like. So this is kind of in a way the way I work. Um, is just very intuitively following wherever we're going, and oh, this is something, and oh, let's try it.
I love
So
it.
experiential in the moment, through dialogue. It could be playful, it could be serious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Um, Before, because I know we emailed a little bit, the much dreaded quick fire section is coming up.
Mm.
But before we get there, is there anything else you'd like to say before we jump into that?
Mm. I really love therapy, and I hope people get over that hump to try it,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that changing tide is all about breaking the stigma and changing the conversation. So like I know it's hard, even if I need to like I don't know I don't know, find like a dry cleaner, like to make that first call is always hard, even, but then something like therapy is even harder. So whatever support you need to just make that first call, um, just encourage you to any listeners to do it. And also, if you contact a therapist and you meet with them and you don't like them, try someone else, because just like you have different types of people who you click with for your friend groups and for your teachers and for your doctor or anything, there's gonna be people who you really click with and people who you don't. And all us therapists, we work differently, we have our own styles, we have our own personality. So if you don't like someone, give it a few times, because it could be a learning process. But after a few times, you're like, nah, just don't write off therapy as that.
Right.
That's therapy with that person. Give someone else a try, because there may be a totally different approach that fits for you.
For
So
sure.
yeah, it's really individual.
I love it. Great way to end that section. We go ahead if you're ready. We could go ahead. It's really
Okay,
not that
I'm bracing.
bad. Truly not that bad. But are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm
All
ready.
right. So, question number one: what is your go-to comfort food after a long day of work?
Oh, a long day of work. I was gonna say my go-to comfort food is instant ramen.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I love it.
Cool.
I can eat it morning, night, anytime, late
Is
night.
do you do you,
Just
do you throw the egg in?
sometimes,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Got
Raw
it.
egg.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I have to put in the egg, but
yeah.
is there a song or an artist that you listen to that is perfect for when you're trying to relax?
Ah, let's see. I'm trying to relax. I don't know actually. I've been listening to a lot of Blackpink.
Okay, for sure.
Which is
That's
not
what.
relaxing, but it's very energizing. So
Okay,
it helps balance out like my work is very, can be very intense. So
right,
uh, something playful
for sure.
actually
We
helps me
we could go with
relax.
that then. We could go
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
A piece of advice for anyone thinking about trying therapy for the first time.
I guess I kind of just answered that, but
Yeah.
try, um, just go for it and keep trying until you find someone you like.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That first call. That first call.
yeah, yeah.
If you could invite 5 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be?
Hmm. Let's see. Nipsey Hussle.
Ooh.
Um. Gosh. Oh my God. Um. Let's see. Adyashanti. He's a spiritual teacher.
Okay.
Um. Five. Oh my God. I feel like the pressure's on with this one. Uh. Here we'll go with Jesus, Buddha, and Carl Rogers. He's a psychologist.
Great. Is that 4?
I don't know, 4 or 5. I'm not sure.
Okay. We'll go with it. We'll go with it. Is there a hidden talent of yours?
I used to play in bands a lot.
Okay.
So all the like the garage band instruments.
For sure. Is there one that you preferred that was your favorite or that you were best at?
I like drums.
Okay. Very cool.
Um, and I can also use a chainsaw.
I that was a surprising one. I'll admit that was a surprising one. A skill you don't have but you wish you did.
Oh, playing piano. I feel like it's like the core musical instrument that I would love to be able to just like if there's a piano somewhere, just come and sit down and start playing.
Right.
That'd be
Wouldn't that
awesome.
be great?
It would be really cool.
Um, advice you if you could give advice to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
Mm. Hang in there
Mm,
and have fun. You don't have to do everything.
I love it.
Mhm.
I think that's a great way to end it. That pretty much wraps up the interview.
Cool.
Matthew, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast, for being such a helpful hand to changing tides and everything that we do. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you again to Matthew Shima for joining us and talking about being a therapist, about his own mental health journey, and about his life. I think it's interesting to hear the perspective of a mental health professional because I feel like mental health professionals do so much of the listening that it's interesting to hear their own perspective from their lives and what they do for their own mental health. So, yeah, again, thank you to Matthew Shima. And to the listener, if you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe to our show for our episodes that release on every other Tuesday and give us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. If you would like to support our podcast and help us grow, you can do so with a donation to the link at the bottom of the episode description. To hear more about Changing Tides, follow us on Instagram at LTSC_Changing Tides or check out our website, thechangingtides.org. Let's continue to change the tides on mental health.